This is the end, beautiful friend.
I've talked a lot in the past about my distaste for how a lot of larger action sequences are shot these days, especially the more practical ones, where numerous cameras cover the scene from all over the place, with the sequence itself built in post-production. The thing is, this isn't new. Action has been covered by numerous cameras for ages, it just makes sense. For example, when Cameron blew up this building in Terminator 2, he could only do it once. Of course, you would shoot as many angles as you could. My problem has become that due to the ability to literally shoot as much as humanly possible with cheaper digital cameras able to do take after take, which just wasn't possible with film, we end up with these sequences often covered somewhat inartistically by second unit that look frankly quite messy. When shooting something like this, you can go a number of different ways in bringing it to the screen, from doing it all from afar in one take, to throwing you in the action. You're choosing when to make the audience spectator and when to make them a participant. Most films now choose the latter, and though that isn't inherently a problem at all, sadly, most end up like this. The thing is though, a sequence of intense scale, filmed from a large number of angles with take after take, that each looks quite different, can not only work, but it can work brilliantly. The ride of the Valkyrie's helicopter attack on Charlie Point from Apocalypse Now must be one of the most famous action scenes, and war scenes in general, of all time. Apocalypse Now though, as far as film productions go, was one of the most troubled, difficult shoots ever. Filmed over 238 days, ravaged by dangerous weather and disaster, with helicopters that kept being taken from the set to be used to fight off rebels, and the film itself being rewritten constantly as they went along. The fact any part of it turned out well is a victory in itself. The choice of Ride of the Valkyries, filled with dips and rises, changes in speed and power, gives us something to latch onto as an audience. Whatever happens, if we follow that music, itself telling a story, we will be okay. Though the editing is fast, it has a rhythm, and the length of the shots on average is still enough that you always have enough time to understand what is happening within each frame. Within the staccato onslaught of carnage, there are several moments put together in a more traditional manner. We've spent time at the school previously, so we are given a quick but clear enough flyover shot to give us a sense now of where we are in relation to the rest of the scene. This school will be a focal point throughout, so coming back to it makes sense. Within the greater general attack, we need certain smaller objectives and obstacles. Yes, this is a massacre, but there has to be at least some tension, even if just for a moment. The dialogue and visuals inform us of a 50 cal, the beginning of that smaller story. Then we hear and see the characters react to it. This is the danger. Finally, they destroy it, the resolution. To keep us interested, we need these mini-stories within the grander scenario. The same structure occurs again with the truck. We find out about it, there's a small chance it could get away, but then they resolve the problem. These smaller moments keep things manageable for us as an audience. A lot of these moments are probably happening at the exact same time, but time is stretched in a linear fashion with each occurring one by one. This is similar to how John Woo crafts his action scenes, using slow-mo and multiple points of focus around the environment to allow us to keep track of things as they occur. In reality, things would be over a lot quicker than this, but we are in a cinematic reality. Time can be stretched. Points of interest can happen one after the other instead of at the same time, or rearranged entirely for maximum dramatic effect. Sam Peckinpah actually often did the opposite of this, cutting between different events within a sequence to show just how chaotic it all was. His liberal use of slow-mo, though, still kept us in a certain amount of understanding of what was going on. Apocalypse Now here uses no slow motion, keeping that sense of realism perhaps less integral to Wu and Peckinpah's work. They are using just enough cinematic technique to keep us geographically and narratively sound, but still maintaining a realism and thus respect to how things really were in Vietnam. Murch considered emotion to be the absolute most important reason to cut, to edit, above everything else. Geography is malleable, but the emotion of an action scene must be maintained and guided. The story is us seeing through our characters' eyes how the Americans view the Vietnamese. That is the reason, as chaotic as this is, it is still cinematic, more than being entirely realistic. It's cinematic for us, because it was cinematic for them. By the time the attack is almost over, we get a more graceful shot, drawing us away from the helicopters to the beach, in a more traditional manner informing us that the tone is changing, and thus the shot length increases, the editing slows. There is a chaos to how films are edited now, which can be fine, but often it ends up simply feeling messy and confused. If emotion is the most important part of cinema, of storytelling, and your sequence is filmed and edited by committee, sometimes without the actual filmmaker even present, how can you ever really bring that intended emotion out of a scene? Apocalypse Now feels like the perfect combination of drama and action, of storytelling and emotion. The director was always present and in charge. He spent time in the edit with other artists working out the best way to deliver the feeling they wanted from the attack scene, and we have thus been gifted one of the most important, most impressive feats of action cinema history.